Tere! Sadly, when I realized that I had to do a presentation here, I did my slides yesterday evening. Doesn't matter in that sense, I can speak about the topic anyhow in Estonian and English, but sadly those are in Estonian. So, so why me? Why I'm talking about that? Maybe there's one reason that I have been in this field roughly, I would say 20 years, more or less. Started with different kind of used to be called CompuSec. Like back many years ago, it wasn't. There was no InfoSec or wasn't really actually a cybersecurity. It was CompuSec. So started that when I was in the military, and from there on I kind of developed over the years and ended up in private sector now, more or less Estonian Energy. So being a group CISO in Estonian Energy and also running a small CISO side hustle on a smaller company called Nortal AS, which is one of the biggest Estonian software developers. Different companies, completely different approach, completely different view on securities, completely different needs for security. And it's a good way to ask, or for me to ask that question, SOC or no SOC, because companies have different needs, different requirements, different compliance needs. So, definition and main goal. In essence, what SOC is, and I define it by cyberspace, because I'm not talking about information security assets, yada, 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 all that stuff. Cyberspace, all attacks that come from the internet side. So SOC, usually in essence, is responsible to defend against all incidents, events that come from the internet side. Me being an information security manager or CISO means that I'm not just responsible for a SOC operation, I'm responsible for all security operations that can end up and will end up in one or another way in information space. And the information space is not digital, it's also physical. So lockers, safes, all that stuff. But in that case, SOC is mostly responsible for cyberspace and the operations from there. Main goals, of course. Monitoring. The most important thing for a SOC is situational awareness. Situational awareness can be handled only if you know exactly what you have, what assets you have. Asset management is quite important. One of the most important things actually is to know what you have. And then you can do priorities. What do you have to defend? Because if you have a very big company, for example, like Estonian Energy, group-wise, it's really huge in that sense. We have several subsidiaries, about 8 or 7 or even more if you count all the smaller ones. Then you have to know what are the crown jewels, the golden eggs you need to protect, because you cannot protect all of them. So only that can be done if you know exactly what you have. And for that, you have to build up the monitoring capability where all the important stuff is visible and you can monitor those. For that, you can use different vendor products. I know CM solutions, everybody knows SonarCube, Splunk, there's like so many. Also, you have to monitor network, NDR solutions. There's also many of those. ByteLife probably sells some of them or provides those. EDR solutions, also countless amount of different solutions you can buy. One promises to be the better, the best, the most best, or however you call them. And the WebAR or behavioral analytics, also lots of solutions in the market integrated into EDR and so on and so forth. So lots of solutions. Reaction and handling incidents. So if incident comes in, you have the CM solution, whoever provides that, you have your NDR, your XDR solution, you get the picture, you have to react to that. So in the SOC case, depends really how your SOC is operating in that sense. In most cases, means that SOC is either a monitoring capability, not an action capability. So you have to have the separation of duties in case of SOC. So it's preferred. So SOC cannot kill the business process, and business process is not responsible for monitoring incidents. Either then can hide the incidents or not react to them, or they can choose. In case if they have a separation of duties, SOC finds, make sure it's hard evidence, it's not false positive, it's positive, and makes an incident about that, puts a mark on it, is it critical, high, and whatever, depends on which framework we use. And you get a ticket, you have to react, you have to do. In some cases, SOCs also have actionable capability in that sense that they can shut down the network. They have a kill switch. They can operate the kill switch, which means that they can cut the network to a specific kind of, segment. Depends how the management really gives the responsibility to SOCs. It's up to the management to decide. In the traditional way, we see a lot of horizontal movement. You have to tell me, I have to tell the board, then we have to decide. In an incident situation, it means like our higher you go, the longer the period in that sense. You end up in a full day, and incident-wise, if you have a malware which encrypts everything you have, then it might be not your ERP system or might not be your document management system, it might be your whole system. So you can choose. The management can choose. It's good that you talked about CISOs. The misconception of the CISO is that he is the sheriff with the pump action rifle going around the corridor and shooting everything that looks like a cyber incident. No, CISO is a manager. He's a management level, C-level actually. That's what it meant actually by that. He has to be a person who makes sure that business is running securely. He is also responsible for business operations, not just his security operations. He needs to be in clear what are the business needs, requirements, and whatever and whenever he does something, he has to be in line with business. It's not just he going around and saying, wrong password. No, not his level actually, really not his level. So CISO is the one who has to talk with the C-level, C-suite, to get the required level of authority into the SOC. When and where SOC can decide upon what exactly. He's responsible for idle TV power off. And SOC, if it has the responsibility, it can do the decisive actions and can make your life easier. So from my perspective, being a CISO, I would prefer that in case of an incident, the SOC has enough authority that the incident won't spread, that the containment actions will be more or less like automatic. But you don't want to have very automatic stuff, otherwise false positive, automatic reaction, business dead, you lose millions. So you have to be really careful about that. Analytics and, prevention. So SOC is not just about reaction, it's also about analytics. So forensics, network analytics, file forensics, system forensics, software forensics, software analyze, software code review, all that stuff, they need to be competent in all those fields. Only by forensic analysis they can do the prevention. So they get new intel in, they go through the old stuff, they have automated tools for that if they have, hope they have, and they constantly do the analysis of last, I don't know, a year data, or depends how much. The problem with SOC is more data they have, the longer it takes to analyze everything. And your forensics guys tend to be really slow, but it's preferable at least to keep 1 year logs to do a, post-mortem analysis of previous cases, incidents, maybe something that was false positive, but not fully addressed and so on. So that's something you should have in a SOC, is an analytical capability. Of course, raising the awareness and keeping the company in loop. So SOC as such, I wouldn't say that SOC specifically is responsible for keeping up the awareness, because it depends. In my case, I have a special division or team available who works for the awareness part. So I have a teacher who is, from background-wise, a teacher myself, for example, more or less. And then another person who also has a pedagogical background. So it's better to use pedagogical background people who use the instruments to get to the hearts and minds. But SOC what does is SOC provides the use cases. Very, detailed use cases, what happened, how happened, and so on and so forth. And the teaching part, you can use that knowledge to raise awareness for all the employees. And it also, having a direct communication with the workers and having a direct kind of line to the people makes your life easier. You are not an outsider. Because usually what happens with SOC is they're seen like the hard police with the pump action gun, and they're outsiders usually. You don't want to that. Only way to mitigate that is through communication and then being available all the time. SOC importance in that sense. Why is SOC important? It's a philosophical question, more or less. Depends what your business does. Business main goal is what? Business main goal is to make business, to earn money in the end. Business is owned by someone, the someone wants to make money. And having a SOC really depends on how the SOC is described, how the SOC is brought on board, in which phase, how knowledgeable the management is about SOC operations. Is the SOC described from the perspective of, opportunities, not from the perspective of cost and, additional weight on the company, which they have to keep up. So one thing to do that is to emphasize the benefits that SOC as a unit brings. And also, you have to understand that there's big difference between compliance security and security. So compliance in general is what we look for in all the cases usually. ISO 27001, in Estonian case AITS, SOC Type 2 in UK, several different frameworks. Compliance security is not security. Compliance is something you show to your clients that we did some effort. And in legal means, we are more or less compliant to the law, or according to the framework at least, we have done some due care and due diligence. But it doesn't mean that you are secure. Compliance problem is that it doesn't give you the details. If compliance requirement, for example, is you having a password, is password secure? Depends on the situation. In some cases, yes. How it's implemented, how long it is, what additional features are included, how the password is kept, is password hashed and salted, where is it situated, how it's transferred, all that details. None of those compliance frameworks give you that detail, usually, not in that level. So security and compliance is not the same. And SOC is not actually so much worried about compliance. It's more about worried about real security. It's about constant monitoring and reaction. So today we have an option, we have the SOAR capability, we can automate to a certain level. But to be honest, nothing out of the box, and I mean really nothing out of the box, works without human intervention. There's nothing like that on the world. Doesn't even AI doesn't solve your issues. Really depends. If you have very easygoing stuff, maybe. If you don't, if you're not responsible for human lives, you are not running a critical business, maybe you can do a full automation. But if you are responsible for human lives, there's no legal or no lawyer voting, yes, you can go for the full automation, you don't need human intervention. No, you can't. That's the reason why we don't have full self-driving cars. So you need to have something as a person who keeps a look on your system 24/7, 365 days a year, constantly. And only that person, usually in critical moments, has to say yes, no, go, no, stop, and so on. Centralized management. It's preferable, and the reason is very simple. A big company, do you want to have 10 SOCs or 1 SOC? If you have more than 3, then they will start to compete with each other. You can play a democratic part, but I'm not a big democracy believer in critical decisions. It doesn't add up, it doesn't compute really actually. In critical decisions, it's time that matters, not like how many votes against and how many votes for. So it has to be really very, very clear and very specific. So it has to be centralized. All information needs to come into SOC. This is either a log management capability and then from there to SIEM. It really depends what you incorporate into SOC. SOC is not something specific. It's not very standard in that sense. You can have physical security events showing up in SOC logs or SOC incident management systems. You can have all kinds of incidents accumulating in one incident management system and can be reasonable in that sense. For example, if you're doing an electricity or ISP, then you have several locations all over the Estonians. There are physical security features you need to monitor because you can do the best you want in your logical plane in that sense. You can do the IT and use IDSs and all the fancy buzzwords going around the security. But in the end, it's just a guy with the USB thumbstick and comes into your system and you're okay, maybe I can use some fancy stuff that stops that. But then you have legacy, where you can't employ very fancy stuff anymore. And it's still one guy with the thumbsticks coming on. So that's why the Stuxnet happened. It was cut-off system, but it still happened. If an adversary wants to come, he comes. It means that the SOC as such, if possible, include also physical security details. If it's related to, I don't know, connection points, system, I don't know, nodes or whatever. So would be preferable to have that kind of data in the SOC also, at least to look at it, to do an in-depth criminalistic analysis. Qualified personnel, the black belts of networking, the black belts of whatever in IT. I have to say that this is the most crucial part, actually. It doesn't. No, not today. This is the most crucial part. As I said, nothing, literally nothing, works out of the box. You cannot take a software, put it in a computer, and just like, let's magic happen. It doesn't happen. You don't have a CDMB. You don't have asset management. Nothing if people are not involved. You can do the best SOC, but when the Microsoft team sucks, sorry for my French, or the Linux team sucks, they can undo everything you do in mere seconds. So the SOC team has to understand networking, platform, forensics, software development, all that. If SOC team doesn't get that, they're screwed. So easy. So they have to be literally the black belts who take care of your information system security. How many you have, that's a different story. My practical take on that is that taking people out of the school doesn't make them SOC operators. Sending a person to hacking essentials course or advanced hacking essentials course or whatever courses or web application security course or hunt the hacker course or whatever course, doesn't really matter. Doesn't make them a SOC operator. Period. Doesn't. SOC operator gets to that level through experience. He has to experience being an admin in a system. He has to experience being help desk operator. He has to be experienced in software development. He has to know how it sucks to be an administrator, how it sucks to be a help desk operator. He has to know that. He has to know what are the painful parts of those jobs. He has to know how to approach an admin guy. He has to know how to approach the IT help desk guy. He has to be able to relate to that. So preferably a SOC operator or person who works in SOC knows networking, platform, software development, has laid hands on those parts, has worked on those positions. Then he can relate, then he knows where to ask, where poke around, and so on. And then you can send to him to the fancy courses about WAS and whatever there are, NIS and so on. Proactive approach in that sense. SOC is not just waiting, not sitting in his hands and waiting when the CM starts to yell and the alerts start and then they start to react. No. SOC is not that functionality. If there is such a SOC, it's not a SOC in that sense. SOC is also responsible for doing constant analysis, research. They have to look through systems. They have to keep their eye on the system. They have to understand that in the system they have Windows 1000, I don't know, whatever, Linux, different variation of Linux, different operation systems. They have constantly monitor everything, and they have to analyze that. They have to be aware what's going on. It doesn't just stop that I'm waiting for the CM to start to yell. A good SOC is that one that looks at the asset management, looks at the software, looks what's going on in the organization to that level that they are aware about procurements, new soon to come live to software solutions. So they're on top of the game. How they manage that, that's a different story, but they have to be active all the time, not passive, not waiting. They have to poke around. They have to hack or hunt the hacker in that sense in the system also. They have to deploy honeypots, honey nets, honey whatever to catch something. And there are also a bunch of solutions for that, different honey solutions, I think. ByteLife can also find those for you if you need. Compliance, following the compliance. Besides, yes, compliance security is different than real security, but SOC as such has to follow compliance anyhow. So they have to make sure, besides the security, they have to make sure that you are compliant. And they do that through being knowledgeable. They also know the regulation. They have to know the NIS2. They have to know CES. They have to know all those different European fancy different regulations. There's many. There's literally many. And you're really in bad situation if your company is globally active. I have one company, Latin America, USA, Canada, UK, Germany, Middle East, bunch of different regulations. And you have to manage all around those regulations all the time to know that you're compliant. They have to know, for example, if it's okay to take data out of one system in one state. Is it allowed to import or export any data from there? Or they have to go on site, or they have to do remotely on site. So they have to know exactly what they can and cannot do. Components, functions, overview. So components, there are many actually. SOC is like, I'll say, endless backpack you can grab in and grab something. All stuff that, in that sense, everything that helps you and your system to be secure is okay. So SOC actually, being a black belt from operational side, people being able to operate, being able to run, being able to cope in different situations, means that they can use literally everything for their advantage. Whatever gives them an advantage to provide security, they will use, should use. There should not be a limit. There are several main components, functions, that all are orchestrated. So, of course, we talked about EDR, XDR, NDR, CM. Those are technical solutions that can support you. Besides that, there's a log aggregation, log filtering, log analytics stuff, there is code review systems, solutions. You can integrate them all. You can use fancy stuff, basically. Just Google, you find everything for something. There is always something for someone. But besides that, there is also procedure. One of the main things that the SOC has to have is blue books, playbooks, different procedures for different situations. Why? It's time. Time is most important for SOC. If an incident comes in, you have to have a well-oiled, well-orchestrated system and people and processes to go through the incident management process. It has to be really played out very well, as good as possible. As a military, I have to say, previous military, I have to say, every plan works until the first shot is fired and then everything goes to hell. You have to have, like as I said, you have to employ different solutions to monitor. So not networking, logs, system, operation systems, even people, behavioral analytics, everything that. Incident management processes, how you manage incidents, how you classify incidents, how you delegate incidents. There's lots of different ways you can handle incident. How you contain everything, what are the criteria. Then there are also business requirements come in. Are you allowed to do a containment? Does it have an impact on business? How many millions we are losing? Can we rely on the, for example, insurance? Should we close it? Should we not? At some point, some decisions are business decisions. And then that's where CISO comes in and has to go, like, okay, those are billions, not today, we have to run it. Let's take the risk. Then they have to go to the board and board says, we take the risk because we are talking about billions here. But how the process is built up, based on what principles, it's not one golden rule there how to do that. Because you have to always count in that what business you are in and what are the business requirements. Threat analytics and threat intel. It's very hot topic in that sense at the moment. Stuff going on in Ukraine, China being active in their own specific area. It comes in that sense that you have to understand in which kind of domain you're operating. If you are a global company and you have Asian market and then US or over the Atlantic some markets and you have Middle East market, there are different threat actors active in those areas. So you cannot assess that, okay, I'm in Estonia, my main threat actor here is APT 28 and 29, which are Sandworm and whoever the Russian ones are here. And those are main actors and we take care. If you're a global company, your main effort or crown jewels are here in Estonia, but you operate all over the world. You have to count in APT 44, different APTs around Asian space and so on. So you have to count those also in. So you cannot take the MyChat matrix and then find Estonia. No, if you're all over the world, then I'm really sad for you, but you have to look at the whole matrix, not just 16 possible indicators you think that are valuable in Estonia. No, not really. You have to do analytics. You have to know exactly what you're looking for. Also depends which market you are operating. Is it the medical market? Is it the banking sector? Is it an energy sector? It has differences. You should be really aware what, where, what, and how exactly. Reaction and business continuity. How you, one responsibility of SOC, usually SOC, as I say, I don't like SOC being just monitoring capability. Or it can be in that sense also, but SOC has to know how the business continuity is planned. Where are the backups? How it's all built up. They have to monitor in that sense that business knows where they are. I have had several cases where business doesn't know where the backups are. And then the worst case is that the backups are in the same system that was encrypted. That's best value for the money, I would say. So they have to be aware where are the systems that are backed up, where the backups are kept, so they can make sure that the backups are usable. They are not using themselves, but the IT department probably wants to use them, but they have to be also secure those backups. because the latest attacks means that dependent on your backup solution, the backups are poisoned. You can come up again. In the Ukraine case was 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. They had foothold in the system, 6-month period. It can be even longer. There are cases where 1 year there was a presence in the system, maybe longer. At least that's the moment when they're found out, which means that you have to be really careful about your backups. You can kill that, throw them out, restore, they're back in. Business starts from zero again. Communication again. And collaboration and communication. In Estonian case, I would say the best case was 2007. I'm not talking about the cyber war. I really don't care about that so much. It was, in that sense, contained more or less in Estonia. But the best that came out in Estonia is the community-based approach to security, the collaboration part. So like, there was one chat, a guy shouted out, and everybody answered. Communication saved us from the worst in that case, and it still is in that sense. In Estonian case, I have to say that being so small has a really good perk in that sense. We know each other. I know several people here in that room. We know each other. We can shout out. We can find the responsible person who knows how the stuff is done, where the backups are. It really works, but the basis of that is the communication. Enable that communication and collaboration. But it's easy to say for Estonians. Let's go over to Germany. We have 80 billion people. I don't know how many bundles, kind of regional, different kind of units. And then there's different story. In US, the same, more or less. And Europe is a whole different story. We don't speak same language in Spain, for example. They don't speak Estonian for whatever reason. There are lots of Estonians there, actually. But yeah. That's how it is. There's a language barrier, there's a cultural barrier, there's lots of barriers, and the communication doesn't work like that. And there's also abundance of different organizations. Me being here today means that I'm not over in another organizational meeting today, which is European Cyber and Information Systems, whatever the organization was called. But it shows that there are so many different organizations in Europe, and I don't have the time to participate in all those events. And I need to pay for everyone, like, for you. And then you get the MISP solution. Everybody inserts their data into the MISP, and then you have lots of noise. Good luck cleaning that. Business-wise, how can be a SOC valuable for a business? In layman's terms, in that sense, it can enable a business through finding and neutralizing incidents before they happen. They can contain the event so that the business is able to run and keep up the business as it is. But it's usually the issue with that is that yeah, we haven't had anything really, and nothing has happened so far. And why do we need to spend extra money for the SOC and personnel and training and everything like that? It's a business decision. The honest answer is it's a business decision. And usually the decision is really fast after they have had an incident where everything was encrypted. There's no questions asked anymore. So it's either you understand what the SOC does and what it is meant for. Or you can also additionally utilize the SOC for your compliance. So you can emphasize, you can actually punch up the sales numbers by saying and showing that we are secure, that we have a security, we have the best security, we have the black belts. You're a trustworthy business partner. It can be of importance if you are on the market, so EPO-wise and stuff like that. So it can boost your shares. It can be important. Trustworthy as a talk test. Business processes, providing that the business is running constantly all the time. In that sense, you can also say that SOC is like 24/7 help desk on steroids. And I don't mean just steroids, it's ultra steroids in that sense. They see everything. anyone, everyone, everything. It's better than the help desk. They're faster, and they probably know much earlier what goes on than the help desk. Strong SOC means that if you are emphasizing that, if you are visible with that SOC, if you go out with that SOC, if it's part of a community, everybody knows. It's easy to say in Estonia at least. Everybody knows that you have the top-notch security, you have the black belts, they run your business, and if you're providing, I don't know, services, then everybody knows that those are trustworthy services. You don't want to be a security company who doesn't really meet the security standards. Like, it's a very terrible solution in that sense. You can be hacked and then it's not secure, so business is over. Cutting down cost. It is actually an operational SOC is expensive. This a while ago I did a paper on that, how big should be a SOC. Also was participating in Sun's SOC course a while ago. This is 25 is standard. But actually, if you have all those elements, the bare minimum to cover all the functionalities is minimum 35 people operational. I'm not talking about 24/7 all, but 35 to cover all the functions is the minimum amount. 35 black belts in networking, in software development, in platform, those black belts are really expensive. So you need to understand how you handle them, where do you get them, how you keep them. Because having a person is not just one cost. Losing that person is even bigger cost, because you have to hire a new one, you have to take time to train him. If you have a solution he is not familiar, it takes about a year in worst case scenario, at least 6 months. If it goes, it's bad. It's more expensive. So you have to make sure that you get those guys, you train those guys, you keep those guys. And the SOC guys usually are very prone to burn through in that sense. So you have to make them also, or provide them also a certain level of entertainment. You just don't make sure that you don't kill them. It's very easy to kill them. One 24 event or 24/7 event or several in military, it's okay, that's my backpack, that's my tent, 4 hours of sleep, next guy. Most of you haven't done that. And if you are in that situation like today, 24/7 for the next 2 weeks, at some point you say, come on guys, no, that's not what I signed up for. Even if with that salary, I don't really know. So you have to be sure that if you hire the team, you maintain them is the good word for that. You send them somewhere far away, make sure that they have enough leisure time, and it's cheaper in the end, it just is. But how they cut costs, it's a tricky part in that sense. You can employ SOC in different ways. You can employ SOC also as your system optimators. I have in my SOC team software guys who can look at different software and say, this software piece is not optimized for that use case. This software piece linked with that software piece, there is like overlap, and so this is not optimal. They can go through those also, and it keeps them sharp actually. They also can go over different platforms, networks, constantly going over those and say, this rule is bad, this link is not okay. And you can use them as technical audits, you can say it that way. You can use that for that purpose, and they help you keep your cost under control. Because they see in a system, for example, you have endless amount of VMs in Azure environment, which you pay a lot of money, and developers want to have features like logging all the time, and then you see that your virtual storage is full, and you get like 4 times higher bill than usually, and then it's like, okay. But SOC guys are usually on top of that game. They see that what goes on, and you can use that for that purpose. And also looking at the fines, NIS2, 40 million for IT system, whatever incident brings you down and has some not desired effects on your critical infrastructure or whatever, 40 million maximum. If you're in Estonia, maybe not so bad, but the fines tend to be low here, if all. at all. But if you are a global business, nobody cares. In Germany, Facebook, GDPR, okay, those are GDPR compliance related, but still Facebook, the amount of money they paid for fines is unimaginable. In Estonia, one company would go bankrupt in a second after the decision. So if the NIS is enforced 2025, 16th December, you have to be compliant. If you're not, and you're a globally actionable company, and you have several smaller offices in Europe, and there is some incident with you, I guarantee that you go bankrupt probably. Because maybe in Estonia we have some, okay, you're an Estonian company, but the Germans don't care. It's a busy market there. So they can help cut those costs. Also related to GDPR, actually. GDPR is also compliance. GDPR is heavily reliant on technical solutions like data protection or data loss prevention systems and so on and so forth. So SOC can help in GDPR compliance also. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Uko. Do we have questions for him? All clear?
So switched over to English. Sorry for that. I'm doing my own SOC. In 1 year in office now it's 15 people. But it's foreseen 28 souls in that SOC. At the moment I have 15, but the roadmap is 28. Okay, full-time, yes. So the reason why I do my own SOC is that energy companies really, in European space, we have lots of companies who are divided into smaller pieces. Everyone has their own responsibility. In Estonia, historically, we had one company. One big company did all. Production, dissemination, big, small, green energy, metalworks, mining operations, everything related to that. Even real estate, if you want so. And having 6,000 people working for you, managing all that, it used to be even more. Managing all that and IT systems in an environment when you have systems from the 50s, the 1950s, which are more or less automated, and then systems which are 2024, when we are talking about controllers that want to speak to the cloud. So you have everything. Users from 18 to 80. So you have to cover it all. Having a SOC that is enabled to do that, not so feasible in that sense. In that sense, considering the endpoints, the amount of endpoints, the possible endless amounts of false positives, the whole hassle between those legacy systems, it just takes so much time to bring on a company, and it will cost hell lot of money. They want, because they have to pay someone for the work. They have to have people also on their payroll. Such a huge company like Estonian Energy, it's much more feasible to have its own internal SOC than buy-in service. That's how it is. Smaller companies, if you don't want to spend on the hassle, if you don't want to invest into the system, SIEM is an investment. It's not just you buy one and you forget it. None of the systems are. You have to keep up. You have to keep up the hardware, the software. You have to have an operator. You have to have analytics. It's constant hassle. It doesn't function like that. So if you don't want to do that hassle or take care of that, then it's easier to buy, I would say, small to medium-sized companies, definitely. Big companies dependent on what business they are in. So in our case, energy companies in Europe, eastern part of Europe, being in the situation where you have war in Ukraine, there's a huge responsibility. And I'm not sure that the companies who provide SOC, they will do the same level that we do on on-site. So
okay, do we have more or? Yeah.
How's the hiring here? How easy or difficult is it to hire people for the SOC and maybe continue staffing the night shift?
Very good question. Staffing the night shift, that starts from the legal framework you have in Estonia. So what are the conditions to have the night shift? Night shift wise, you probably need to have at least 24/7 operation, means that that position needs to have 5 people in one position at least. Because you have vacations, functions, and in 24 you have how many 8-hour cycles? Okay. So you have to have a spare, you have to count in. So every position, so SOC, the night shift, at least 2, depends on the size, system, depends on the automation level, everything, but at least 2 because one needs to go to the toilet. And they should never go together. So maybe 3 people in one 24/7 operational cycle need to be present all the time. Hiring, also as I said, black belts. How many black belts? You are from Finland? Sweden, okay, close by. So how many black belts you have? Same here. The rough estimation is 1 to 6. So 1 black belt versus 6, maybe it's even worse. Not so black belts, soft power in that sense. If you are hiring, then you have 1 to 6 ratio, more or less. So you want to hire one guy, you have 60 candidates, 10 potentials, and 1 guy that makes it. Then you have to calculate in 60 people. The cost of hiring is so high today, actually. You spend like, for one position, you spend roughly 7,000-8,000 euros work hours wise. The HR has to do that. But 60 people equals 60 hours of talking, analyzing. Not talking, just talking, then analyzing, going through that is hellish in that sense. It's not good. What I do in that sense, I have done in the defense forces, and some of the guys who know, I go to the universities. I make sure that I find that potential. He knows how to play with Legos. He knows how to think logically. In Estonia, we have the different cyber events going on over the years. When I was running the cyber range, you find the potential. You don't look for the black belt. You train the black belt yourself. That's the only way to do it. And then also you have to have situations where didn't make it, didn't have enough water. Next one. You have to count in. It's a trial and error. It's not so bad about hiring and training them. It's the worst is keeping them. That's the worst part. You have to make sure that they don't end up being divas. And they know what their job is, but you have to make their job as much comfortable as possible so they don't leave you. Because if they leave you, 6 months salary, new guy hiring, it's about 20,000 or more euros. Just if one guy leaves, if you add compensation and whatever cost, then on top of that, finding a new guy when he starts to be operational, it's about, I would say, 20,000, 30,000 euros when he's more or less actionable. If it's a potential guy who worked for you 7 years, the sum is even bigger. You have to train him. And then I have had in defense forces, the worst case, you can hear from experienced HR officers, like there are no people who are not, how you say, replaceable. There are no replaceable people. Really? I spent 100,000 euros for a forensic guy. Because forensics is very competitive in that sense. Everyone wants them. It's very tough area. You find only those very mathematical brains who are able to do the analytics. You spend lots of money on that. And if he says, there are no replaceable people, it's like, they are, actually, if you are a businessman. But if you're not a businessman, yeah, you can talk like that. It's like one shot of the bazooka, 1,000, okay. Maybe, but in reality, it's not like that. It takes hellish time to find these people, hellish time to train them, and extra effort to keep them. It's not easy. And I'm almost like begging, like, please don't go. Whatever you need. And then you step to the board, and as a CISO, you have the work to keep the SOC running, keep the people in the SOC, make sure that business understands, make sure that you understand the business. This is not an easy job. That's also why the burnout of CISOs is like after 3 years, no questions. The sheer amount of responsibility you get is not just the task, it's keeping the people, keeping the team, everything. But some cases, CISOs, as you said, are the pump action guys. Like one guy in the business goes around, That's easy CISO job. The worst is if you have a team, 35 people, maintaining them. And then your CISO job is not just a CISO job anymore, then it's father, mother, grandfather, and so on and so forth. So you have to make sure that they are there, they stay there, and you still will lose some. So you have to have some backups. Not easy, not cheap.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So thank you for everyone who has been here, who has been in online, found the time today. I hope this subject has been interesting for all of you. If you have more questions, please don't hesitate to ask ByteLife cybersecurity team. We are always here to help you. So have a great lunch and see you next time.